Welcome, everyone, to Empowering Futures Mentoring for Racialized Youth and for joining the Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research for what we believe will be an enlightening panel discussion with a focus on the impact of mentoring on racialized youth, drawing from both lived experiences and research-based insights. Our panel of researchers and experts will share what they have learned about the challenges faced by racialized youth and how mentorship can be a transformative tool. Backed by recent studies and real-world stories, the discussion will highlight ways to create inclusive, supportive mentoring spaces for youth, fostering resilience, confidence, and pathways to success. This event is essential for those looking to deepen their understanding of mentorship's role in advancing equity and supporting racialized youth. We would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. I am joining you from the University of Alberta, located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. Through personal and professional reflection, I learn and continue to learn about the calls for action in response to TRC. I teach and research in complex, diverse, and changing contexts, and I'm committed to intentionally exploring and integrating different ways of knowing in my teaching, research, and service through appreciation and respect of different worldviews and approaches to the work carried out. And especially as I think about my research and my role as scientific director for CCMR. We appreciate that you are joining us from different regions and territories. Please feel free to note where you are joining from. And I don't think I even said my name. My name is Christina Rinaldi, and as scientific director for the Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research. We are delighted to be hosting and facilitating today's panel discussion, but you may not know who the CCMR is or what we are. So very quickly, it is a center that was founded by Alberta Mentoring Partnership, Mentor Canada, and the Faculty of Education at the University of Alberta. And our main mission is to advance knowledge about youth mentoring in Canada by bringing researchers together. The center works not only with scholars to raise the profile of Canadian research related to youth mentoring, but also with practitioners. And we hope to connect research and practice and ultimately enhance the quality and the effectiveness of youth mentoring in Canada. We're delighted to have two featured projects today. Our first project will be connecting youth with racialized identities to employment, strengthening skills for success through mentoring, which is an SRDC in partnership with Mentor Canada. They are investigating ways to improve access to employment and community-based mentoring opportunities for young people between the ages of 18 and 35 with racialized identities. This project specifically focused on mentoring designed to strengthen skills and support career pathways for racialized youth. And our second featured project is Black Youth Mentorship and Leadership Program. And the goal of this program is to enhance economic prospects, community integration, and leadership abilities while nurturing a positive cultural identity among its participants. The program aims to engage Black youth in innovative research and provide them with internship opportunities to maximize their experiential learning and facilitate their upward mobility. I have the pleasure of hosting our panelists, introducing them rather. From the SRDC team, we have Dr. Jennifer Ray. Jennifer joined the Social Research and Demonstration Corporation in 2019 as a research associate. Her educational background is in the field of community psychology, and her areas of interest include community mental health, addiction, and homelessness. She has experience conducting applied research and evaluation using both qualitative and quantitative methods, and Jennifer holds a PhD in psychology from the University of Ottawa. Her thesis research focused on access to education for youth from low-income family backgrounds. So welcome, Jennifer. We have Priscilla Twum. Priscilla is a second-year MA student in public administration at the University of Ottawa with a passion for evidence-based policy analysis and governance. Her research examines public management principles and policies that prioritize citizen-centric initiatives, particularly for vulnerable social groups, with a focus on equity, inclusion, and social justice. As a peer researcher with the Social Research and Demonstration Corporation, Priscilla is involved in a project to strengthen mentoring and skill building opportunities for racialized youth, and this work aligns with her dedication to designing policies that uplift marginalized communities and create sustainable solutions through data-driven insights. And we have Mahalia Baggio, and Mahalia is an aspiring health researcher and community organizer. Her work primarily focuses on amplifying the voices of equity-deserving communities and strives to utilize her research background to engage in meaningful work. Mahalia holds an MSc in Health Sciences, Technology, and Policy from Carleton University, where she is focused on applying a trauma and violence-informed framework to inform data management practices for community-based health research. For project number 2 that we'll be discussing, we have panelist Dr. Bukola Salami. Professor Salami is a full professor in the Department of Community Health Sciences, University of Calgary. Her research program focuses on the well-being of Black, immigrant, and racialized people, and she has been involved over 90 funded studies totaling over $230 million. She recently received a $2.5 million SSHRC partnership grant titled Transforming the Lives of Black Children and Youth in Canada. She has founded and leads the African Child and Youth Migration Network, a network of 42 scholars from 4 continents. And in 2020, she founded the Black Youth Mentorship and Leadership Program, the first university-based fully interdisciplinary mentorship program for Black youth in Western Canada. Her work on Black youth mental health informed the creation of the first mental health clinic for Black Canadians in Western Canada. And she has presented her work to policymakers, including the House of Commons Standing Committee on Health. So Professor Salami is Vice President of the Canadian Nurses Association and board member of Black Opportunity Fund. She's a council member of SSHRC and an advisory board member of the CHR, Human Development, Child and Youth Health Division, and on the Scientific Advisory Committee on Global Health to the Government of Canada. To say we have an accomplished and outstanding panel is an understatement. So welcome to all the panelists. And I promise that's all you're going to hear from me now. Now over to you.
Thanks, Christina, for that introduction. So Mahalia, Priscilla, and I are presenting some preliminary findings from our research study that's focused on connecting racialized youth to mentoring. This is a partnership between Mentor Canada and our nonprofit research organization, SRDC. We received funding from ESDC to do this research, and it's ongoing. We're in the middle of it. So we just pulled a handful of sort of first impressions and interesting findings to share with you today. Our research project is really about exploring the lived experiences and perspectives of racialized youth, focused on their education and career experiences, their experiences with mentoring, and trying to really zero in on any gaps or opportunities for support that we see. And we had a mixed methods approach. We earlier in the year worked with Maru Matchbox to field a quantitative survey. This was a cross-Canada survey, and they produced a nationally representative sample. The youth who completed the survey were between the ages of 18 and 30. We had 3,000 youth overall complete our survey, and of them, 1,900 were racialized youth. And we also conducted qualitative interviews. Specifically, Mahalia and Priscilla conducted a total of 23 interviews with youth aged 18 to 30. These were recruited with the help of Mentor Canada and many of the partner organizations. So some of you might have been here today that helped forward our recruitment materials, and we thank you for that. We also used some snowball sampling, where once we spoke to a youth, we were able to connect with other youth in their own network. So we're going to be sharing just a little bit of findings from both of these methods of inquiry.
So our survey took about 20 minutes to complete. Youth were asked a wide variety of questions based on the types of themes that we were aiming to capture throughout this survey. This is just one example of the questions that we had asked them. Depending on the question, we also provided some definitions for some key terms. In this example, we see that the word family is underlined, indicating that a youth could either hover over the word or click on the word, and a definition of family would appear for them. Many of the questions that we asked the youth in the survey were actually contextual based questions. For the racialized youth, some really important findings we have gathered is that around 59% of racialized youth either agree or strongly agree that they felt they could be their full, genuine selves at school. When asked to define what success most means for them, we found that racialized youth really prioritize their mental and physical well-being, followed by having a work-life balance. We found that over half of racialized youth have completed some form of post-secondary education. When asked about the highest level of education they completed, we found that around 54% of them have completed some form of post-secondary education, followed by high school, graduate, or diploma. When compared to the 2021 census, we see that our numbers are somewhat reflective. However, it's important to note that the numbers for the 2021 census shown here are only inclusive of racialized folks from the ages of 15 to 64, whereas our survey only focused on racialized youth between the ages of 18 to 30. Around 84% of all the racialized youth surveyed had attended some form of education or training since turning 18. For our study, it's important to note that education and training also includes any type of training that they could receive on the job, or if they've attended any type of professional development programs or classes available within their own communities. Of the 84% who have done some form of education or training, around 21% of them actually left a program without completing it. When asked about the top 5 reasons why they had left a program, we see that most youth decide to leave because they realize that they were not going down a path that was right for them, followed by either trying other programs or facing some significant challenges. This is important to highlight because we see that racialized youth don't really follow a very straight pattern in terms of achieving some sort of career or training success. In terms of mentoring, we found that around over half of racialized youth had some form of experience. Around 52% of them had experience before turning 18, and we actually see the numbers increase since they turn 18. However, it's important to note that we still see a good number of youth who still are unsure between the differences of a natural mentor and a program mentor. Since turning 18 years old, we also found that 32% of racialized youth had no mentoring experience. We asked all of the racialized youth, all the youth in the survey, to tell us the most common barriers they faced when accessing mentoring. The racialized youth identified that these were the top 4 barriers they had faced, ranging from not knowing how to find a natural mentor or a mentoring program, thinking that mentoring was not appropriate for them, or not having family support in terms of finding a mentor.
So thank you, Mahalia. So continuing on, I will now share some of the key insights we've discovered from the qualitative interview. So these themes center on how racialized youth perceive mentorship and their reflection of what works and what doesn't work. So we thought it was interesting to share how racialized youth identify themselves over here. So moving on to the first key theme, we saw something of like rethinking mentorship. So traditionally, mentorship is understood as guidance from someone outside your immediate circle. But however, many participants expanded this definition to include family members and peers. So we had participants describe their sisters as like their everyday mentor, looking up to them and following in their footsteps. Also, majority highlighted that peers provide practical support, so help, motivation, and opportunities, where one participant said that peer assistance for course selection was invaluable to them, and another reflected that in competitive programs, peers like can push each other to excel and build stronger connections. So for the second theme, we also saw something of like a cyclical nature of mentorship. So for many, mentorship is not just valuable for their personal growth, but also centers like on their desire to give back. So this drive to mentor others also stems from either their own experience or lack of mentorship in general. So one participant said that just as mentorship helped them, they wanted to give back because mentorship is important to them. Another also reflected that they mentored first year students in their program because they wanted to share the knowledge that they wish that they had. So moving on to the third key theme, we also had some insights to the gaps that hinders like participants' ability to build trust and fully benefit from formal mentorship services. So the first gap that we saw is like the lack of personal one-on-one connections. So as one participant puts it, they participated in programs that cater to career and life guidance, but they didn't see any of the workers as mentors because they couldn't create a personal one-on-one connection with them. So the second, also a lack of representation. So we saw participants emphasizing the importance of seeing themselves reflected in their mentors. So one shared that it is helpful to see a reflection of themselves in what you would see or you like to see success as. And another also shared that they didn't find programs that targeted their social identities. Lastly, to the final theme that we've also discovered is that participants place significant emphasis on the importance of mentorship, but they also express barriers to accessing these opportunities. So as one said, that if there was like an opportunity that knocked on their door, they would have signed up for it, but they didn't even know it existed. There was also a broad consensus on the need for consistent ongoing mentorship. So particularly during key life transitions like post-graduation. So another participant reflected that if there has been something in place when they graduated, it would have been less overwhelming. So these are the key 4 emerging themes that we've been able to come up with that talks about what racialized youth see mentorship to be and in terms of accessing what they face. Thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla. And yeah, just to highlight, our research is ongoing at this point. This is just a very quick sneak peek, but we're continuing our analysis and interpretation in the months to come. And we're looking forward to hosting some interactive workshops in the new year where we can share back our findings more fulsomely and hear some feedback and additional insights. And we have some interesting knowledge mobilization ideas as well in the new year, working with a designer, working with a company that's going to help us make some videos and kind of just think outside of the traditional report. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. And we also have the intention of eventually making our data set publicly available. So that's also something to keep an eye out for, an anonymized version of the data set from the 3,000 youth that we were able to survey. So if you are interested in updates or being involved or even offering your feedback on our project, we're really interested in having this be a community engaged project and participatory. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I've just put my contact information here. You can also visit our website, srdc.org, and learn more about the project as it's ongoing in the next couple of months.
Have the pleasure to have our second project presentation. Dr. Salami will present.
Thank you so much for inviting me to present. Thank you. So today I will be talking about the Black Youth Mentorship and Leadership Program. This program was created in 2019, 2020 to socially and economically empower Black youth to contribute to the society. And I created it based on my lived experience of a Black youth trying to navigate mentorship program. I myself went through a mentorship program, the first mentorship program created at a university in Canada was at the University of Toronto around 1994. And I was one of the first set of people to go through that program. So I'd always thought, when I get to the stage, I'll be able to do it for others. I created this program when I had the capacity or ability to do so. It's been in existence since then. And, those in my background, that is, I think that's the third set of our program. Obviously, it was a COVID-19 pandemic, the first time we could ever come together, but still wearing masks. So I'd like to acknowledge I'm located in Treaty 7 territory, which is comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, the Canadien First Nation, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta. I also like to acknowledge my funders. So we know that we have around 1,500, 1.5 million Black people in Canada. Black people tend to be on average younger than the general Canadian population. 50% of Black population live in Ontario, and we have about, the next population is in Quebec, and after that is Alberta, which has around 20% of Black population. But we know that there is inequities in the workforce. And I put this as the cappuccino effect, that the workforce is like a cappuccino. When you go under, you see more Black people, so it's black underneath, and it is white on top. And sometimes I say, sometimes we sprinkle a little of blackness on top to create an illusion. But still, it still maintains largely white on top, black under. And we need to be able to actually address these disparities. One vital tool that we can use to address is mentorship, mentoring Black communities. So the Black Youth Mentorship Program seeks to socially and economically empower Black youth to contribute to the society. We hope to increase the leadership skill, post-secondary entry and completion rate, community belonging, create positive identity, and also empower Black youth to tackle racism and discrimination. We've had different iterations of the program. When we started in 2000, we paid youths $500. We had around 36 youths. The format was a bit different then. We had sort of for most of the youths, the 26 youths, we had group mentorship. So we had around 3 undergraduate youths that provided group mentorship to Black youths. In 2021, we changed that. They completed individual projects. They received $700. So we're still trying to nail, what is the best honorarium stream for Black youths. Obviously, what we would have preferred is to pay youths at least a minimum wage, but oftentimes we do not have funding for that. I think we've gotten to a comfortable spot that if we cannot pay minimum wage, at least paying them $2,000 over the summer, that is not a salary, so that then tax is not being deducted, is a comfortable spot to be. So we have had around 200 youths. We had 32 youths in 2022, and in 2023 we had 41 youths. In 2024 we had around 46 youths, and we also had around 12 youths that were undergraduate students. So high school youth 46 and 12 youths that were undergraduate students. And last year what we did is we paid $2,000 for the youths. There was the year before last year, we're able to pay them $15.20 per hour. So in terms of the way the program works, youths, it's a 6 weeks program for high school. So I'll mainly focus on high school. It's a 6 weeks program. And over the 6 weeks program, they attend workshops once a week. Usually it's on Mondays that they attend workshops. And then for the other 4 days a week, they're with a faculty mentor. They have two mentors. One of those is a faculty mentor that gives them a project to do. And sometimes it's not a faculty mentor, sometimes it's a community mentor. And the other one is a community mentor. We always try to ensure at least one of those two mentors is Black, so that then it can help them in terms of improving their positive cultural identity. And then they also complete a project. So these are some of the workshops that they complete every week. Faculty member career panel, thriving in world of work, conducting literature search, improving writing skills, thriving in university, studying effectively, budgeting, financial. I think we used to have some on anti-racism, some on Black history. So I had a long piece of slide about the results, but I know we are short of time. So I just pulled a few things out. So, this is Kelly, I think was, one of the first in our first year. So these two people were in our first year and they commented on, the positive impact that it's had on their life, including the academic skills that they were able to gain and the confidence that they were able to gain. So in the first year, this was in the first year where, one youth completed the mentorship program with me. And, this is what she had to say after completing our research project with me about the identity, about being a person of color, that it is something that she now prides herself in. And for our love for what she's doing, our motivation is very important. And because as wonderful as it is to be Black, my color is not what defines me, but my actions in my everyday life. And, some of the values that she's learned in the program related to saying thank you and also related to respect. So some of the things that we've learned from the program includes ability to increase cultural awareness among Black youths. When we started the program, one thing that we were quite surprised about is the workshop that youths were most interested in learning from was the one about Black history. It's like they just couldn't get enough about Black history. When you start talking about Black history, the next one that youths found fascinating, they asked a whole lot of questions, is how to manage my money, right? Because a lot of youths, they don't know in terms of bank account, anything. It's their parents handling everything. So that was interesting. Attention to power is one thing, especially as we navigate lines related to related to age, building competence, ensuring that we create a positive work environment for youths, and also networking and community belonging. So some of the things that the youths have been able to increase on is their leadership skills, their cultural identity, and their ability to feel confident that they're actually able to achieve and to have the tools necessary for them to be able to achieve their goals. Thank you very much. And, if you need to email me, my email address is oluwabukola.salami@ucalgary.ca.
Thank you. Thank you, Bukola. Thank you, Jennifer and Mahalia and Priscilla. We'll switch to a bit of a facilitated discussion for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A from the audience. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to start adding them to the chat, and Pamela will help us answer your questions in just a moment. Maybe to kick things off, I would like to ask Mahalia and Priscilla if they were able to share a little bit about what their experience was like as peer researchers for the project that SRDC has been leading.
I can get started. I found it really empowering. I think it was really nice to be able to interview youth who were from the same cultural background as me. I'm a Filipino Canadian, and when I was doing the interviews with other Filipino Canadian youth, I found that it was a lot easier to have them open up about their own experiences because they were able to explain themselves in our shared language. Um, and that way I was able to do my best to transcribe it in English and put it in our transcriptions and allow for the rest of the team to do some of the qualitative analysis because sometimes there's just words that we cannot use in English to describe our feelings. So we default to our home language and we're able to encapsulate those feelings in a much better way. So I thought that was like one of the best things that came out of doing the interviews as a peer researcher.
Thank you. Also, same here, as like a peer researcher. One thing that I also saw was that as a student, positioning myself as a student helped other students share what they were going through because I could relate. And I had people saying it was a therapy session. That is not what I was trying to make it look like, but because of one, we share similar, either as a Black person or other racial group, but we share similar cultural, um, so we share similar cultural background, so it's easier for them to feel free. But one other key thing that I realized or saw was that it wasn't just about the cultural um it wasn't just about what you share culturally, but what you share based on like your gender. Because with the women too, it was easier for them to feel very free to share anything with me and to talk. But with the men, even though I shared one cultural like background with one of the men, it was so difficult for him to like talk because he had a lot to say, but it was very difficult to break through that barrier. So that was like one interesting thing that I saw. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahalia, is there anything else you would like to add before we move on? I think that those are great insights, right? Being able to build a relationship with the person you're interviewing, that is an interesting and an important approach when working with younger people. If I can ask maybe Bukola, I know that the Black Youth Mentorship and Leadership Program is a wonderful program, and like thank you for sharing about your program and the experience you've had over the last couple of years. Can you share a little bit about what you've learned in terms of the challenges engaging young people in the program and some strategies that might be helpful? I know that during the pandemic, for example, you tried to have the program run virtually. How did that go for you? And have you learned anything from that experience?
Thank you. We've learned a lot of things in terms of our experience, and that's why we keep adapting to this situation. Of course, one challenge that we've always faced is, finances, because what happens is when you do not give honorarium to youth, then you get a lot of you still get Black youths, but it's gonna be all rich Black youths. Right. So how do you address the intersectionality is we need to raise the funds to be able to actually pay youth, and so that youths that can afford not to be bringing home money home over the summer can actually attend our program. Virtual engagement has been, a challenge. So last year we had a program, we had an in-person location in Edmonton. We had an in-person location in Calgary. We also had some youths joining online. And sometimes it's hard to keep youth accountability when they're joining online. So that's been a challenge. There was a year, the first year ever that we did it, it was supposed to be a summer program, but we ended up expanding our program to become over the winter semester. And I remember there was one mom that said, "Oh my God, my child is gaining a whole lot from this." But because everything switched to online, and yes, weakness was, their area of improvement was mathematics. So they had a challenge combining doing this during the semester and also online. So we had to switch it in the summer so that then it doesn't affect people over the year. So that's been a challenge. So those are some of the challenges. We try as much as possible to continue to engage parents. Mentorship is not just a thing about, youth, and, parents have to also be engaged in the process, right? And we've seen that as an important element to be able to, and we've also seen that the benefits of bringing Black people into the mix, that positively influences youth when they see that there are other Black people surviving. Oh, one lesson that we quickly learned in our program, and someone said, informal mentors, is we thought that we are going to bring mentors and we're going to bring mentees and they're going to mentor each other. And we quickly realized very early on in our program that no, this is not the way it's going to work. The youth will mentor each other. Because what tends to happen, and I realized this in the second year of the program, when I thought this was an affair between a mentor and a mentee, is that socialization process within youth is so important. And what tends to happen is youth that maybe, they're the only Black person in their class, they don't really know, and all they see is images, negative images, that they start seeing that, oh, that youth is actually really, really smart. I want to be like him too. Right? And we start seeing over time, youth emulate each other. They come into the program and they just find friends and they start emulating each other. So the question is, how do we create that environment where youth positively influence each other going forward?
That's wonderful. And it speaks to one of the findings that Priscilla just talked about the importance of peers in terms of being role models and sources of support and information for other youth. Some of the themes that came out in your discussion was this idea that mentors and the programs are helpful in terms of cultivating pride and positive identities for racialized youth. And this is a bit of an evolution in the field of mentoring in terms of considering these outcomes of ethnocultural or racial pride and positive identities as valuable outcomes of mentoring programs and youth programs. Can you speak a little bit more, perhaps, about how that has influenced either your research project? I know Mahalia, Priscilla, Jennifer, that was a question, a component of the research project, and Bacola, how that fits with the rest of the objectives of your program. And you've had a long list of topics that you discuss and have workshops and conversations with your program participants. So interested in learning more about the role of mentoring and youth programs in cultivating positive identities for racialized youth.
When our program first started, the way this program started, it was 2 weeks. We saw a call for proposal, and 2 weeks we put it together. And it was the first time Black faculty members across the University of Alberta would come together and do something together. So I remember I sent an email to all Black faculty members I knew. So initially, it was supposed to be purely Black faculty members mentoring youths. But then we found that if we wanted to expand this program, because we don't have enough Black faculty members on top, we need more of us. And how do we address this? Then the next thing we did is, okay, so now we got some non-Black faculty members mentoring youth, but then we also found that some youth really, really wanted to see role models that look like them, to say, this person achieved that, I can achieve it too. So we started bringing community mentor and research mentor, so that then the community mentor, most of the time, are Black, and then it doesn't matter if the faculty member is Black. So that's how we addressed it. And let's also be clear about one thing. There are 2 groups in Canada that do not surpass their parents' level of education: Black and Filipinos. So on average, the average Black person, the average Filipino, has less education than their parents. And that's because a lot of kids do not follow the educational trajectory of their parents. They follow rather the economic trajectory of their parents. So the kind of jobs their parents is doing. So the economic, segregation in the job market has implications for youth. So how do we break this? Right, is really, really, and that's one of the things, when you see a youth and the youth is like, well, you want me to go to school? Well, what did you use yours for? Right? So it's really connecting youth to those mentors that, yes, they went to school and they've used it well, right? To really, really debunk that. So that's how we try as much as possible to connect youth. So the first thing we do on the first day is Black faculty career panel, where Black faculty members come together and they talk to the youths. And then we bring different career panels where different Black people come and talk to the youths. But then in terms of the mentorship that they get, and they get monthly, weekly meeting with their community mentor who is Black. And we have guiding questions that guide what the discussion is going to be each week with the community mentor who is Black.
So many of the things that you were just speaking to came up in our discussions around what to include in our research survey. And Mahalia and Priscilla, I don't know if you're having the same moment as I was, but a lot of those themes we had to think about how could we ask a sample of youth this way in a survey, and how could we go beyond just like the sort of standard questions about education and career and really get at some of these deeper things that were specific to the lived experiences of racialized youth. And so we're still in our early days of analyzing, but I'm hoping that we're going to be able to share some results from our survey that shed more light on these experiences, because we asked about questions about like feeling that they had representative professors and teachers in education, for example, or in the workplace as well. And we also, our project had a frame around it around skills, because it was funded by ESDC and because we were looking at it within this realm of like the skills for success framework that ESDC emphasizes for career pathways for youth. And we tried to think outside of that box in some ways too, and look at a sense of like cultural identity and pride as a skill that youth have already. And it's an existing skill that they come into education and career with, or that could be a skill that mentoring could continue to foster for youth. So we also have some questions about that and how well youth are able to navigate different contexts, and also this concept of social justice and the extent to which youth feel confident pursuing positive social change around them. So Priscilla and Mahalia, feel free to jump in, but that was just connecting for me.
Thank you. I will hand it over to Pamela for questions from our audience, knowing that I'm seeing a couple in the box, and we have time is flying by. So over to you, Pamela.
Thank you. There are a few questions for Bukola. Specifically about the program, is there a gender split? How does it line up? What is influencing that split? And then also if you could speak to where is the program located? Is it primarily in Edmonton, or is it now in Calgary? Has it expanded?
Thank you. That's a good question. And you can probably see from my background that it seems there is more females than male, and that's what we get every year. We get more females than males engaging in our program. And, and I think that's one of the challenges, especially when we talk about intersectionality, the need to build capacity of our young Black men in the field. So yes, we do tend to get more girls in our program most of the time than boys in our program. And also it's also field dependent, right? So we'll get, a lot of the males, they want to go into engineering and so on and so forth. In terms of the program, it was initially offered in Edmonton. And then we moved it over the last 2 years to both Edmonton and Calgary. Next year, we are not sure, because I'm still really actually looking for money if we're going to be able to offer it in Edmonton and Calgary. And then every year we get between 3 and 6 people join online, located in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. So we've had, at least every year we get 1 or 2 people from Saskatchewan every year. For some reason. So that's what we've had every year. But, I do also see some differences between the boys and the girls. And I think it points to how to build capacity of some of our boys. There are some years where, yes, I saw, I've seen like really, there are some boys that came into the program that are working for me, and I'm like, what did your mom do? Right? I actually approached one of them and I said, tell me all your tips that you've gotten here, your little secrets. But I think that's one of the things too is, when I started this program, I was not expecting the amount of brilliance that I met with many of the youths. And I don't know if it's just because of our program, and I see the youths and, the youths feel empowered, but we have such brilliant youth. I mean, there was a time I had a 12-year-old in my class. He was in grade 12, and he ended up coming back to me to get a reference letter for a scholarship in the US at a university in the US. So we get such brilliant youth. So I think one of the things that we've learned is oftentimes we tend to homogenize all Black youths. But what I've realized is there's such a huge range of skills and abilities of Black youth. So how do we meet youths at the point where they are in terms of their skills and abilities?
Another question we have is about whether is there a study identifying that education piece with Black youth and Filipino youth in Canada. It sounds like the audience is curious about learning more. Where could they learn more about that?
Yes. So sorry, I forgot the name of the Mentor Canada is part of the research project to transform the lives of Black children and youth. And we're currently doing a scoping review of all available literature in Canada on Black children and youth in Canada. And I think all available literature on Black children and youth in Canada, we got around 270 articles. Around 50 of that are on education. So yes, we will be having a reference list, and maybe I will see actually if I can share the reference list. I'll look to see if I can share the reference list with Veronique, and then Veronique may be able to distribute that reference list of all the literature available in Canada on Black children and youth. So, the name that comes to mind is, if you ever Google George Day, all the work that he has been doing for centuries has been on education of Black children and youth and is well known in the field. There's someone else at York University that does a whole lot of work on Black children and youth. So we have a whole lot of data on educational achievements of Black children and youth in Canada. And, the literature, I've done a literature review in the past on Black children and youth that I can also send to Veronique about Black children and youth involvement, education. So yes, we do have, and the question is, what interventions are best? And we do know that mentorship is very, very important in the lives of Black children and youth, and that oftentimes there's barriers in them getting the mentorship that they need, especially in a situation, in a context where their parents have experienced so much inequities that then it's hard for them to actually see beyond those inequities that their parents have experienced. And also atmosphere of anti-Black racism.
Thank you, Bukola. I do know that you have to get away and you have some other meetings coming up, but thank you so much for your time. And Veronique will follow up with you about those resources to share. If anyone has other questions, they can add them to the chat. Priscilla, Mahalia, or Jennifer, do you have any thoughts that you wanted to share? Thoughts that have come up?
I think someone had mentioned in the chat the idea of the economic trajectory tends to overshadow a youth trajectory, and I believe Dr. Bukola also briefly. I will share in the interviews that I conducted that the idea of financial instability is something that our generation is still dealing with. And also the idea that giving back to your community or your family is something that's really vital when trying to figure out your career path. Like someone like myself and some youth that I interviewed, getting a job for us isn't only to pay ourselves back, but to also pay our families back. Like, can we help sustain our parents in the future when they decide to retire? Can we help contribute to the family household? My household is not just me and my partner, it's me, my partner, and my family. So I know that that's been some of the in terms of choosing a career path it's not only about us, but it's about our family. That could be some insight into why the economic trajectory is a much more influential factor than some people may realize.
So to add to that, it's about like needing mentoring in key transitional areas because for the definition of what a youth is, mostly mentorship services or even programs at the age of 25 and even above, like those services like are cut off. So, and that is when you might need mentoring the most because you're transitioning out of like school. Because if you're when you are in school, you're in this bubble that, oh, I have 4 years. I don't even have to think about like what is next for me. Like getting to like the end stage where you're going to launch out to a career path, that becomes like where you need guidance the more. And also when you want to transition from one path, like how do you even, because we know with school they teach us like stuff, but they don't teach us like real world stuff that we want to know. So having someone there to guide you on the real world stuff is also very important. So that's also one thing that we see that is like very lacking. Another thing too with the gender of women and men and how their response is to like maybe mentoring. Because in among racialized youth or in some cultures, like men are seen to be like get it or have everything figured out for you. So asking for help is so hard for them. So that's why maybe you see most of the respondents or people who are part of like mentoring is like it's for women. But I feel men also need a mentoring too because we need good and great men like over here, like that understand certain things. So it's not only about how we reach out to them, it's about like breaking that barrier that they can also ask for help and also how supportive like other genders can be. Like we should have that kind of supportive thing like to push men and also back to family, parents, like breaking that, like pushing men and also seeing the influence of family. So when a program is being like designed for maybe someone from a cultural background, it shouldn't just be about like from one aspect. Like the community and families also have to be involved or what goes on within that and how can I like appeal to a racialized youth because it won't be just their decision to join. It'll be a decision of like families. So a parent can just tell you that this is not important. Like it's okay, don't join. But breaking that barrier, it's very, very, very crucial and also important. Thank you.
Great insights. Thank you both for sharing. It helped me kind of try to put myself in Black youth, Filipino youth, racialized youth shoes a bit more when supporting mentoring in schools. That's a large part of my role. A question for the interviews. Did you see a kind of divide or more females than males agreeing to interview? What did that look like?
Yeah, we had a breakdown of about 70% women, 30% men in the interviews as well.
Thank you to all the panelists, to Jennifer, Priscilla, Mahalia, and Kola. You had a lot of emerging data that was coming out from the first project and a lot of information that we heard from Bukola, but you also brought it to life in a very meaningful and accessible way. So thank you for sharing your perspectives with us today. And I think, Veronique, you also said we will post this on our CCMR website and look ahead to new panelist discussions in the future.
Absolutely. So we will email a link to the recording to everybody who registered today and add it to the CCMR website, including the edited audio for everybody to see. So thank you all for coming today.